Yo, what's going on? It's the MMA Analyst, and I'm back at it again. In this video, I'll be breaking down UFC 87. To me, I really like this card. It's got some interesting matches, real tests for different fighters, and a chance for GSP, George St. Pierre, to do something he hasn't been able to do yet, which is successfully defend his title. Let's get right down to it. I'm going to start at the top of the card and move down to the bottom. Here we go. In the first fight, we've got George St. Pierre versus John Fitch. Now this is a fight between the champion and the guy who deserves the shot at the champion more than anybody else. Also, the thing is, he doesn't stand much of a chance at beating the champion, but nonetheless, it's hard to put anybody else in front of this challenger. And this challenger is, of course, John Fitch. He's 19-2. He's on a 15-fight winning streak. 8 of those wins were in the UFC. In the UFC, he's got wins over Diego Sanchez, Juan Carnero, Thiago Alves, Josh Berkman. And not in the UFC, notable wins. He's got a win over Shoney Carter and a really good jiu-jitsu guy in Jeff Jocelyn. Now, John Fitch hasn't lost since 2002. His only 2 losses have been to Mike Pyle, who recently dominated in a nice fight in Affliction Band, and Wilson Govea. This was before either of them were in the UFC. Anyways, Fitch is a real strong wrestler. He's got 8 of his 19 wins by submission, 4 by knockout, and he really is the #1 contender. But like I said, doesn't stand much of a chance, in my honest opinion, against George St. Pierre. He's 16-2, and his only losses came by way of armbar to Matt Hughes and TKO to Matt Serra in what was definitely the year of the upsets. You do not want to bet on mixed martial arts in 2007. You lost money that year, unless you're an idiot. Then you made a lot of money that year, but then you lost money every other year in MMA history. Anyways, both those losses have been avenged by George St. Pierre, and right now GSP really does sit atop his division as the king. Matt Hughes, he's obviously not what he used to be. Just took a loss to Alves. He's hurt. He was supposed to fight Serra. George St. Pierre is on the top. Nobody's really touching him, at least in theory. Now, the thing about George St. Pierre is, though he's a great striker, in my opinion, his strongest weapon is his wrestling. And although it's not the most decorated guy, like he's not like, he's Canadian, but it's not like he's a state champion or all Canadian or Olympic wrestling or whatever it is. I mean, it really is how his wrestling translates in MMA. This has allowed him to own decorated wrestlers like Hughes and Josh Koscheck. Now, it's also enabled him to shut down Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whiz kids like Matt Serra and Mayhem Miller, and his abilities have made it possible for him to shut down the judo expert Karo Parisian. Now, GSP's got some wins, some big wins. He's got a win over BJ Penn in a fight where if you saw the damage after the fight, you would have thought like GSP got jumped by like soccer hooligans and just stomped out. For real, he looked like a deformed Mr. Potato Head. It was crazy, but he won that fight. It was a close fight, but yeah, I think he won that fight. Anyways, he's got wins over Frank rear naked choke Trigg, and he forced in a nasty beatdown. He forced Sean. I'm tired of being blamed for something I didn't do. Shirk to drop down in weight classes. He also has a pretty nice win over Jay Heron. This is going to be a wrestle fest, and as will most George St. Pierre fights from this point on, or at least since his KO loss to Serra and on. And yeah, though I think anything can happen in MMA, just like anything can happen anywhere, I'm talking about what will likely happen. And what will likely happen is George St. Pierre stoppage, and I'm going to say in the second round. For some reason, if GSP can't stop Fitch, then it will be basically a landslide 5-round decision. But that is very, very unlikely because I see George St. Pierre getting top control, tiring and pounding Fitch out long before 25 minutes expires. Final prediction, TKO from ground strikes in the last minute of round 2. Winner George St. Pierre defends his title. Now, let's say he defends his title. There's a fight a lot of people, including myself, want to see. George St. Pierre versus BJ Penn. The difference is I don't want to see that yet. Until George St. Pierre cleans out the division, until he does basically what Anderson Silva's done with his division, where literally beat everybody that is a contender other than Okami, which that fight has been planned, and then he broke his hand, and demands. I don't know, I just wanted to rhyme. But anyways, George St. Pierre has not defended his title successfully yet. Once he does it a few times, once he beats some guys that we all, at least I think he'll beat anyways, then at that point, I say, set up George St. Pierre, BJ Penn 2. Same thing with Penn. There's a lot of talented guys in his weight class, like Tyson Griffin and some other guys I'm going to mention in the next breakdown with the Kenny Florian versus Roger Huerta. But a lot of guys deserve the shot at BJ Penn. I don't think they'll get the win, but they deserve the shot. And once they both, clear out the division, I mean, this might require them to fight 3 times in 1 year, which it seems like champions, only fight like twice a year in the UFC. Meanwhile, Chris Lieben fights like 6 times. I'm going to talk about that later. Anyways, once that happens, make the fight happen. I'm really interested in seeing it, just not yet. Okay, up next, we've got Ken Flo Florian versus Roger El Matador Huerta. All right, first of all, let me say this. Thank God, I got a chance to do an early prediction, like early in my MMA analyzing career, I guess if you want to call it that, maybe analyzing YouTube hobby, whatever you want to call it, on Huerta. I've been waiting a long time to voice my opinion on this very talented and exciting fighter. But here's what I have to say. He is not that good. Now, I don't mean he's not that good as in he's bad, or he's not that good as in he won't beat 80% of all competitors in his weight class that they put in front of him. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about he's not as good as the powers that be would want you and I to believe, in my opinion. And let's go through why I believe this. I'm going to ask you a question, my former MMA fans, my fellow MMA fans. Slip up. All right. What do Alberto Crane, Douglas Evans, Leonard Garcia, John Halverson, and Jason Dent all have in common? Yes, they have all have lost to Roger Huerta. Yes, they are 5 of Roger Huerta's last 6 wins and the first 5 wins in the UFC. Yes, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that all these fighters, these 5 fighters, Roger Huerta's first 5 fights in the UFC, they all made their UFC debuts against Roger Huerta. Now, my question is, in what I consider to be the second most stacked division in the UFC, why did Dana and Joe Silva, or both of them, find it necessary to go outside of the UFC 5 times in a row to find opponents for Roger Huerta when there's a multitude of great fighters already signed to the UFC? I'm going to continue to skip a Clay Guida's fight and talk about him last. When Huerta fought Alberto Crane, by the way, who is now on a 3-fight losing streak, hadn't fought in almost 3 years. When he fought Doug Evans, who is now on a 4-fight losing streak, by the way, and is only 5-4, he hadn't fought in a while and hadn't really beat anybody. And again, it was his debut in the UFC. All of his opponents' records combined at the time that they fought Roger Huerta before he got into the UFC, it was 87 and 76 combined. And over half of those fighters had more losses than wins. What I'm saying here is he's got a nice looking record, but he hadn't fought anybody until he reached the UFC. And then even then, they gave him 5 guys that they believed he could beat. Why? They've got a plan. I'm sure we all know about what hype is all about. But just think about this. Do you realize that BJ Penn and Sean Sherk, of course you do, but have you thought about the fact that they're in the same weight division as this guy? He's nowhere near that type of competition. Like Din Thomas, Tyson Griffin, Marcus Aurelio, Gleison Tibau, Thiago Tavares, Frank Edgar, Gray Maynard, BJ Penn, Sean Sherk, Spencer Fisher, Hermes Franca, did I say Frank Edgar? I did. Dan Lozon, Kurt Pellegrino, Joe Stevenson, Mac Danzig, Yves Edwards. All these guys are in the UFC, or at least were at the time, for Huerta's first 5 fights. And he didn't face any of these guys. Why? I'll get to that in a second. All these guys could have been great fights, but instead they build hype. They finally test him against Clay Guida. Clay entertain him or die Guida, and Guida won every second of that fight until the 3rd round, when he already had the fight won, and he still wanted to entertain, and he went for a sloppy takedown, and he got caught. He took advantage of it, and Roger Huerta won that fight. That fight was also the night Mayweather was fighting. It might have been Mayweather Hatton. So I was watching that fight, switching back and forth. And when I came back, I was like, "What? How did Roger Huerta win this?" I came in between rounds and was like, "Damn, Roger Huerta won! Congratulations to dude." Now he's fighting Kenny Florian, who Roger Huerta said this is going to be a walk in the park. That's absurd. Anyways, I spent way too long on this topic. Let's get right down to it. A lot of people, we all know about Ken Florian. He's got elbows. He's got some good wins in the UFC. I think Huerta is going to lose to Ken Florian. It will likely be a 2nd round TKO. And believe me, I'm not a Huerta hater, not by any means. I mean, I was just as impressed at his smarts, looking up at the camera and just busting dude with the elbows. But who was dude? Dude wasn't. He's not gonna do that against a top fighter, because he's not gonna be in that situation. When somebody gets his back like that, they're gonna take advantage of it. Basically, the UFC is trying to create a superstar for the Latinos, so that when they go to Mexico, El Matador, Roger Huerta will stand tall as a fearless leader. I'm not falling for the trap. P.S. This is the same thing they tried to do and still might be doing with Michael Bisping with the UK fans. But that one's not going quite as planned. Anyways, if Huerta wins this fight, I'll be closer to a believer. You know what I mean? Because I'll think maybe he belongs in the top along with those guys I mentioned. I don't think he'll belong ever. I don't think he'll ever be able to beat Sean Sherk or BJ Penn or Stevenson. Huerta beating Stevenson, don't see it happening. Beating Fisher, Aurelio, Edgar, don't see it happening. But I mean, there's a lot of talented guys, the guys I just mentioned, and they keep fighting each other, and it's a really, really entertaining, division. Basically, I see it like there's a few tiers. There's the top tier, where in the UFC it's only Penn by himself, but along with Penn outside the UFC, you've got Takanori Gomi, Shinya Aoki, Kawajiri, Eddie Alvarez, and some other guys that are up there. Then on the 2nd tier, and these guys are all still better than everybody else in the world, you've got Tyson Griffin, Stevenson, Edgar, Aurelio, Sherk. Then on the 3rd tier, you've got Florian, Tavares, Tibau, and Lozon. And then on the 4th tier, you've got Huerta and maybe Nate Diaz and whatnot. Huerta, Diaz might be on the 3rd tier, but he needs to fight somebody else. He had a nice win against Pellegrino. Anyways, I want to see where Huerta belongs, or where he can fight. Can he fight against the 3rd tier guys and win? Can he fight against the second tier guys and win? And again, all 4 of these tiers could still go to any other organization and become the lightweight champion automatically because they beat all of their guys. The UFC has amazing talent in the lightweight category. And anyways, we'll see what happens. Again, Huerta is exciting to watch. He's entertaining. The ladies love him. He's very skilled at what he does. I'm just saying that I don't think he's as skilled as certain people would want me to believe, but time will tell. Anyways, Florian's going to crush him. Moving on. Sorry about that. That was kind of like a fight breakdown, but more of a rant. Hope you guys didn't mind. I just had to get something off my chest. I feel lighter right now. I do. I feel light, like I've let it go, and yeah, I'm gonna take a moment. Wow. All right. By the way, The Dark Knight was sick. Moving on. I just thought about that. Brock Lesnar versus Heath Herring. Okay, this one's gonna be short and sweet. The breakdown and the fight. Nobody will beat Brock Lesnar unless they have amazing jiu-jitsu and can take a beating from the bottom. Herring isn't that guy. He's none of them. He doesn't have amazing jiu-jitsu, and if he gets on his back, anybody that can hit him will take him out. Nogueira, that's that guy. Mir, he's already proven to be that guy. Werdum, probably. But other than that, I don't see anybody in the UFC. Outside of the UFC, Fedor and Josh Barnett also would take on Brock Lesnar, and all likeliness they would win. But back to Brock. He's the fastest guy on earth that weighs 265 pounds. He's 265 pounds of sheer muscle. He walks around at 290 and he cuts like 30 pounds just so he can fight in the UFC heavyweight division. This dude is superhuman. He is strong. He's fast. He's powerful. He will not gas. Nobody on earth can stop a takedown of Brock Lesnar's. I don't care if you sprawl. I don't care if you throw a punch. The best striker, you throw a punch, you might hit him, but you're getting taken down. You're getting taken down. Brock Lesnar is serious. As far as he wants to go in the sport, that's how far he'll go. Now, can he be a champion? Well, not as long as Nogueira is a champion, or if, let's say, Fedor came, he wouldn't be able to be Fedor, but, if Tim Sylvia was the champion still, Brock Lesnar would beat Tim Sylvia. If Congo, good God. I don't like Congo. But anyways, if Congo was the champion, Brock Lesnar would take down Congo and pound him out. I'm not on the Brock Lesnar war wagon or anything like that, but I'm just telling you, I'm seeing what I see. And I'm seeing a beast that is going to run through Heath Herring. Herring, obviously much more experience. He's 28 wins, 13 losses. Man, that's my dude. Just because of the fact that he comes out, his fight entrance music is the best music of all fighters. To those of you who know, you know what I'm talking about. He comes out to some good-ass music. Anyways, but Herring said that Brock is not coming into this fight with anything he hasn't already faced. Wrong. No, absolutely. Brock Lesnar is coming with something that Herring hasn't seen. He's coming as the fastest, biggest, strongest guy that he's ever matched. If there were knees to the ground, knees to a grounded opponent, then I'd say, okay, maybe Herring has a chance. But how the hell would Herring get Brock on his back anyways? It wouldn't happen. Herring's fought top competition for a big portion of his career. The problem is, every time he faced top competition, he lost. He lost to Nogueira 3 times. He lost to Krokop. He lost to Fedor. He lost to Vitor Belfort. He's got wins over Congo. He's got a win over Congo. He's got a win over Brad Imes, Gary Goodrich, and he split his fights with Evan Tanner way back in 99 or something like that. Anyways, in this fight right here, Herring brings nothing to the table. Nothing. He isn't a good striker. His jiu-jitsu is laughable. His wrestling is nothing compared to Lesnar's. I mean, Jake O'Brien successfully smothered Herring for 15 minutes. And then Herring got up and was all upset that a wrestler kept him down. I mean, what did you want him to do? He's a wrestler. That's what he did. He won the fight. If you're going to get upset that O'Brien could take you down, then you have no idea what's going to happen to you when Brock Lesnar, King Kong Bundy, ass whoops this dude. 60 seconds maximum. I'll change it to 61 because that seems to be like the trend. 61 seconds. This fight will not make it past 61 seconds into the first round. Mark my words, or don't mark my words, but that's my prediction nonetheless. All right, moving on. Manvel Gambierian, we all know about Manny Gambierian, versus Rob Emerson. Manny Gambierian, he's 8-2. His biggest win is over Jorge Santiago, and he's lost to two very different looking individuals in Sean Shirk and Nate Diaz. The Diaz loss was an injury in the fight that he was winning at the time, but I mean every win Diaz has had, he was losing for the beginning of it, so you can't really say he would have won that fight. Anyways, he's won a bunch. Manny Gambierian needs to make sure he never gets hurt again. I'm going to change my thought process. That shoulder injury, I hope it's okay. Because if it's not, if it injures him in this fight, they're going to cut him. Because you can't have brittle bone syndrome dude fighting in the UFC. You can't have dude from Unbreakable, Samuel L. Jackson, Glass Man, falling apart anytime he goes for a takedown, especially if your big part of your game is wrestling. Speaking of his wrestling is real slick. He's real good at judo. And 5 of his 8 wins have been by submission. Manny Gambierian, he's pretty good. He's young, he's strong, and he's facing Rob Emerson. Rob Emerson started his career off 0-4, and then he got 2 wins and then 2 losses. So he started his career at 2-6. He has no notable wins, and he is most famous for living in the Ultimate Fighter's house for the reality TV show. I also think that he was in a rich kid gang back in the day. Might have done a little bit of time in kids jail or something like that. West Side? Anyways, 10 of his 14 fights have went to decision. He did have probably his most entertaining part of his career has been a double KO no contest against Gray Maynard in the Ultimate Fighter 5 finale. Anyways, why is this guy in the UFC? I don't know. Manny Gambierian by first round submission. He'll take Emerson down. He'll submit him. Anyways, moving back to the interesting matches. Jason McDonald versus Damian Maia. Jason McDonald, 20 wins, 9 losses. 16 of his wins coming by submission. Not looking good for this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. Yes, he's beat Dirksen, Rory Singer, Chris Lieben, Herman. He's also, faced very, very tough competition. But he's never faced the kind of grappling opponent in Damian Maia. Back to McDonald, though. He has lost to Okami. He lost to Rich Franklin, and at the time, they were the number 2 and 3 guys in the division. He's also lost to Patrick Cote, Shoney Carter, Marvin Eastman, and the fastest legs in MMA. You know what I'm talking about. Caleb Starnes. On a side note, it's actually really good to hear. I know that Starnes was catching a lot of heck, because of his recent performance. But there's good news. Although his MMA career is in limbo, he is going to be competing for Canada in both the 100-meter dash and the 10,000-meter event in the Beijing Olympics. It was obvious that he was not only fast, but he had the stamina to maintain that speed for 15 minutes, and he's already set some records at the trials in Canada. So, no, really, it's nice to see Caleb is moving forward, still has that competitive streak in him, and it's looking like things are looking good for him. But anyways, back to Jason McDonald and Damian Maia. McDonald is facing Maia, and Maia is one of the top jiu-jitsu guys in MMA. His Brazilian jiu-jitsu is right up there with Aoki, Jacare, and BJ Penn. I mean, these are the guys who make other Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys look foolish. It's kind of like if I say, man, I'm real good at ball, like basketball, and then I go play somebody who's real good at basketball, then how good am I really at basketball when I get dunked on and laid up on and blocked and just straight humiliated? This level of jiu-jitsu, this display, the difference here is gonna be shown August 9th. McDonald has a pair of KOs on his record, and I hope he's been working on them hands, because if he tries to beat Maia in a grappling contest, it's going to be lights the hell out. The odds are he won't become and hasn't become an amazing striker over the last few months. So he's going to come with his strengths. And his strengths, unfortunately, in this fight will be exploited as weakness. Maia will get the submission of the night in the second round. All right, on to the undercard. I'm going to do more with the UFC undercards. I'm going to do more of a prediction than more of a breakdown. But for any big undercard matches, I'll break them down just like any regular main card fight. Also, if you've seen my other videos, there was no difference between main card, undercard for Dream, because it's just one big card. And with the Affliction ones, they've got fighters from top to bottom. So, if Nogueira is on the undercard, I'm not going to ignore him because he's on the undercard. He's going to get broke down just like it was the main event. Anyway, so let me know what you think about that, by the way, because I think it'll, I think it'll work. Anyways, we got Czech Congo. You know what I'm talking about, right? Versus Dan Evanson. Czech Congo will probably knee Evanson's rib into oblivion and win by TKO. In the first round, Czech Congo's obviously got a stand-up advantage, and I don't know if Evanson is going to really be able to do anything in this fight. Chris Wilson will defeat Steve Bruno in the third round, also by TKO. Check this one out. It's going to happen. Fight of the night. Not because these are the best fighters or most entertaining fighters, but I think that their styles and what they do in the ring or in the cage will end up making a long, drawn-out, semi to exciting fight. Luke Kumo and Tamden McCrory. I think it's going to be fight of the night, and I think McCrory is going to hand Kumo his 6th loss, which would leave him at 6-6. Currently, he's 6-5. So, yeah, that's my fight of the night prediction. Ben Saunders will be triangled by Ryan Thomas in the first round. Ryan Thomas is, a good ground guy. He wins all of his wins by submission, all of his fights by submission. And yeah, I think he's going to catch Ben Saunders in a triangle in the first round. And Andre Gusmao, the latest IFL acquisition, will get the KO of the night over John Jones. So the undercard to me is, I think it's gonna deliver a lot of the bonuses. It's got the fight of the night and the KO of the night. Again, the submission of the night I think is gonna go to Damian Maia over Jason McDonald. All right, really, it's a great night of fights in my opinion. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be back to review as soon as the fights are complete. Why? Because MMA is important. That's right, y'all. It's important. Peace.